We are live. Amazing. There was only two or three different attempts at getting live. And it's mostly that I'm distracted with various other things, but I am doing a simulcast. And so that was a little bit of a challenge, but I'm always up for a challenge. Now, you guys know that Dr. Judy comes in on a Saturday at about 1 o'clock. Well, I like to say 1 o'clock on the nose on a Saturday. That would be Pacific time. So it is 4 o'clock if you're in the East and various times in between. So this is just another experiment that I'm doing because I really feel like I want to get involved a little bit more with the whole Q phenomenon. And I'm not really sure exactly how my audience is in terms of your familiarity with Q, whether it's radio or live streaming on YouTube. But I've been keeping up, and I want to kind of let you guys know what's up as far as what I've been learning, because I think it's really, really important that folks know what's going on in terms of the things that are going on behind the scenes. There are still a lot of people that are not, as they say, red-pilled. I get kind of tired of these bumper sticker ideas, but really it's just the idea that we think that the world is a certain way, and then we take that red pill and we find out that there's a whole lot of stuff going on in behind. Well, I think we're at a really amazing time in history. We're going to be looking back at this time with awe and amazement to think that we were part of this. And I feel like the whole point is that we're being made part of it, that we are getting involved with what's happening with Q. And that's all part of the lesson that I think Q is trying to teach us. Obviously, Q is a military operative, and I would say what's happening in the country now, in the world, globally, this is not just a U.S. thing, this is around the world. There are military actions going on to help to overthrow what is clearly a coup or an attempted coup on the U.S. government. And you would never know it to watch mainstream media. So a lot of people are turning to YouTube to be able to get the info that they need. And so that's basically what I'm here to do, is to help you out a little bit. If you don't know anything about what's happening, then please let me know. And the people who have joined me on YouTube, whatever number there are, I would like to be able to get folks up to speed. There are a few new Q posts, and I'm just going to, it's the difficulty here is that I'm trying to do a bunch of things at once, so I hope that you'll bear with me a little bit. But if you go on to the QAnon site, which I will, actually I think I've got it in the description there, you can take a look on the description. At the bottom of the page, it's https qcodefag.github.io /. And if you want to go over there, you can take a look at some of the posts that are coming up. But last night, there were just a bunch of posts, and it's exciting and it's scary at the same time, because there are things that are it's hard to believe, actually, because we hear about things happening. I guess in the past, we have heard about these different attempted coups. A lot of people don't know about the one that happened in 1933, but about the same time as Hitler came to power, there was an attempted coup in the United States. This has been going on for decades, if not centuries. There was a move afoot with the Rothschilds in the 1700s to create a one world government, and a lot of people have a hard time accepting that or understanding it. But right now we're experiencing it. We're experiencing how hard these guys are coming against the what we consider to be the government, which is really a lot of people who have been bought off, and you wonder why people go to Washington with a small amount of money and you come out with mansions and millions of dollars. Well, it's actually coming to light as to why that's happening. So when you've got that many people invested in and you've got that much money involved, you're going to have a real pushback. Last night, the Q drops were really engaging. I don't want to belittle it in any way, because it's some of the stuff that was happening, like it was real time, as they said. Real time stuff was going down. There was a couple of photographs that were taken in what people figured out to be China at a hotel there in Shanghai. I believe it's called the Royal Hotel, and it turns out that there's Rothschild's ties there. But the idea was that Q wanted to show what's happening behind the scenes. There are things going on even if we don't know about them. And it was basically a bust that was going on. And so I really encourage you guys to go over to the site, and don't go by me. There's lots of places that you can get information, but I'm just trying to do, as it says, a 101, a primer in what's been happening, and to encourage people to really get involved. So again, when you see things like people resigning in droves, there's been no time in history when there have been this many resignations. And the resignations are strategic, and they are not surprising, because people like Chuck Schumer get invited into the White House and they come out pale, because they begin to see that the jig's up with, now I'm not picking on one person or another, goes right up to Obama, who came out of his presidency with what everybody thought was a totally clean slate. And this is not a political thing, just so you know, but there was a 16-year plan that was in place, and we were in the last stages of it. With, if Hillary Clinton had gotten in, we would be at war right now. And this is not, again, it's not a political thing. It's something that has been actually uncovered as a strategic plan. And so, of course, all of the things are being uncovered. And again, it's not about people, but the only person, I guess, it's almost like there's a story in the Bible about Esther, and she was there to save the Jews, and she did not know that it was going to be her, but she had to do some pretty scary things. And I've always loved that story, because there's nothing about God in that story, and yet it's so clear that she had sort of a divine providence, and she was told that she was made for such a time as this. I love that, for such a time as this. And she was scared, and she was just a woman who had been raised by her uncle, and he always knew that there was something that she was made for. And, well, like all of us, just very ordinary people, or maybe extraordinary. Maybe we're all extraordinary in our own way, but ordinary in the sense that we are only one person. And my perspective is that I can do this, I can broadcast, I can do my little part. But Esther had to really put her life on the line when she went. She had to go to the king and tell him that there was a plan afoot. There's a guy named Hamar, and he'd built a gallows, and in it was going to be the Jews, the leaders of the Jews, Mordecai, Esther's uncle, and it wasn't. It was. Did I say Haman? I might. I didn't have it in front of me, but it's Haman and his sons, and it's so like this. But anyway, she's told that she has to go talk to the king. Her life's on the line, and she says, "If I perish, I perish." And I feel like in Donald Trump we have a leader that is very much like that. If I perish, I perish. And he's routing people, but it's not by himself. This has been a plan that's been afoot before he ever got into office. He was placed there. So the people that are saying, "Gosh, I think he was actually placed there," are probably right. He's been placed there by but been put there by those that are willing to stand up against the coup, because it's the end of the country otherwise. It's a worldwide situation. So here we go with what they've been trying to do is to taunt Trump into firing Rod Rosenstein, because of course then they can go ahead and try to impeach him, as they've been trying to do. I mean, the guy hasn't had a bit of peace in his entire time that he's been president, and he's basically his life is threatened all the time. I mean, he's under threat. And again, think what you will, and I think that it's really difficult for people to wrap their minds around this. But I want people just to be aware so that you can go and do your own investigation and basically get involved in whatever way you can. If you care about the country, if you care about the world, if you understand one iota of what's been happening, this is not a tinfoil hat situation. This is a very serious situation. So he says that people asked for arrests, and so they gave one example. That was the one in China, and you can go onto the site and see the actual images of that. It just gives you sort of an idea. Okay, and so there was a window that was opened. I think it was on the 34th floor, and a lot of people wonder if there's any tie-in there with the guns that were being traded at Mandalay Bay with the crew there, because we know that it was not a single shooter, and it was clearly a cover-up or something that was going on to cover up something else that was going on. And we know that there's a lot of there's been I think that might have been the first pushback to what's happening actually right now. That could have been the opening salvo, as they say. And a lot of people see this as a civil war in a sense, but it's a quiet civil war going on in the background as people are beginning to understand what's happening. Make sure the list of resignations remains updated. Well, that was an interesting one, because today there was yet another resignation, and it was with with David Loffman, who's the Department of Justice National Security Division Deputy Assistant Attorney General. But the big thing is that he was in charge of counterintelligence, cybersecurity, counter-espionage, and export controls, all of which will come into play in this story. It covers everything. That's why it's so hard to explain. And I think they felt like if they made it really complicated, that it would be a lot easier to cover up. Well, apparently people have been on to all of this stuff for a long time, because if it comes down to people like you and me, then it's been really in the hopper for a long time. People have been watching what's going on. As most people are now aware, the epicenter of the DOJ, Department of Justice / FBI, Clinton Steele operation against candidate Trump stemmed from a collaborate small group, quote unquote, effort of Maine justice officials within the National Security Division. John P. Carlin head. I'm reading here actually from the conservativetreehouse.com, and Sundance, amazing person that he or she is, to be able to come up with the background on all of these stories. I'll talk about Carter Page as well, but I just wanted to let you know that this is what Q was talking about last night, the resignations, and today, sure enough, we have resignations, and this one a fairly major one. Deputy Assistant Attorney General. So clearly there was a lot of people that were involved in this coup, very strategic places that they were working in. So I'll let you read the entire story, but if you go over to Conservative Treehouse, you're going to find some amazing information there. So I really encourage you to do that. So he cited personal reasons. So that was very quick. There's a list of resignations that you can also find. I don't have the link there, but I will put it into the description. And I will put it on my website. The website is, actually, it is on the website. Okay, so if you go over to characterdriven.com, you go to the top menu on that page, you will see a link called links. And on there, you'll find all sorts of really good, helpful information, including the first memo, the Nunes memo, the Grassley memo that came out, I believe, yesterday. Things are moving so fast that it's hard to know to remember what's happening. Okay, so this is another one that I find a lot of people have been talking about. We've all had this suspicion that there are cures available for various diseases, and this is one of the reasons that this whole idea of the run for cancer, or run for this, or run for that, has really grated on me over the years, particularly since understanding that there are cures available. We do have free energy. When we talked to Dr. Judy Wood about free energy on Saturdays, that's one of the things that I see as being the huge cover-up. And also in the pharmaceutical industry, these guys on Capitol Hill a lot of them make their money by passing bills, and they're sponsored basically by pharmaceuticals, or they're serving on boards, for instance, Monsanto, or any of the corporations that are lining their pockets, while they are at the same time able to supposedly make a small salary in Congress. And that's one of the reasons that Trump, when he was campaigning, I'm trying to remember whether it was just in the campaigning phase, but one of the first things he did in office was he disallowed lobbying, because if you understand the implications, it has everything to do with the drug companies, and the people. They don't want people to get well. They want people who have good health care coverage to continue to be ill and to linger. And that was the whole idea behind Obamacare. You begin to understand so many things and how they're all linked together. But Q says, what if cures actually already exist? What about the billions public, private, government provided to fund cure development? Sheep. And so that's basically, he's mad. He's not saying, he's just basically saying people are sheep, and these people, the bad guys, the black hats, are sick. And it's really true. They're the ones that are sick. And again, along those lines, how many top medical researchers found dead in the past 5 years? Why is this topic relevant now? Why does the U.S. taxpayer subsidize meds for the rest of the world? Q. Well, those are all good questions, and those are also the things that will come to light. It's amazing that they're being addressed behind the scenes. Clearly, they're getting to the heart of these issues that have been on the table for decades, as I say, if not centuries. There's been hidden cures. The FDA will throw any drug through the process that they want to. Well, the FDA is owned. Let's just put it that way. Clearly, there's a whole lot of implications to this, because when a drug that hasn't been properly tested can get through and is suddenly on the market, and yet another possible cure doesn't get through, then who's benefiting here? Cui bono? I mean, this is exactly what we are discovering through these posts. We're discovering that those suspicions that there was a cure for various diseases is not. It's true, and so. Have you noticed that there are more emergency system tests in the past month? Again, this was last night that this was posted, quite late at night, 20. So this would have been Eastern time, I believe. I'm not exactly sure the timestamp, whether it's local time or whether it is my time. But anyway, it was late last night, at least in the evening. So this is the reality, folks, and this is what I want to get across. This is why I couldn't just sit back anymore, and I don't really care how many people are watching or listening on the radio. By the way, if you go onto characterdriven.com, you'll see a button that you can push for air streaming, and you can tune into that. I'm going to be playing I'm going to be doing a live update. It's not with me, but I'm going to be feeding it in, just an audio feed, so that you guys can tune in anytime you want. It's a 24/7 audio feed, and of course, I can't do it. And the other thing about that, the fact that there are other people doing this on a separate channel, is that Jerome Corsi comes on from time to time, and Dr. Corsi has been amazing in this whole situation because he has a background in intelligence. He knows the players. He understands what's going on, and he believes these posts to be authentic, and he has authenticated in his own way all of the posts. They started in October of 2017, October 31st, I believe it was, and they've just gotten more frequent and more prescient. In other words, there's something that will be posted by Q, and then there's something that will be posted by Trump on Twitter, and then something will happen that confirms those two things. So when you read that there's panic in DC, then there's definitely panic going on. So it's almost like the mainstream media is working overtime to create a narrative that is going to cover up. But they can't cover up. They can no longer cover up. Things are being uncovered faster than they're being covered up. One of the things that's brilliant about this is that it's saving a lot of bloodshed, because if you get people aware of what's happening, which is what I'm trying to do right now, and I hope that you will either share this or tune in to the live stream on characterdriven.com, or find another channel that you can relate to, and that you will pass this on, and as they say, red pill as many people as you can, because this is a whole new way of overtaking and retaking the government back. And one of the things the reason that they're doing it this way is to let people know that they are empowered, that their vote does count, and that their opinion does count, and that they do have a way of participating in democracy. And so there are people working literally 24 hours a day. They tag team each other, and they're getting the word out to as many people as they can. So leverage depleted, POTUS freed. Now, that is an interesting one, because there was huge amounts of leverage. This has never happened, folks. It's never happened before. And there's only certain people, that's why I brought it up, Esther, because there are people that are born for such a time as this. And think what you want. We don't like everything that people do, but when we see the bravery of people who will step forward and fill in the gap and say, look, I will do this. There are lots of people in the background, but there's very few people that are willing to stand up on a podium and to basically give their lives. But what this means is that Trump has been freed from the lie that's been perpetrated on him, not just since his presidency, but well before. And as he said, he did not need to do this. And he is going to go down in history as one of the people that actually saved the country, if not the planet, from these creatures. And this is not even to mention the pedophilia and the child trafficking that has been going on under the auspices of the Clinton Foundation with the Clintons and with a number of other people too. But these people are vile. And I would never have believed it or understood it until I began to look into it myself. These people are vile. And there's much evidence and much more. I think people are going to be shocked. And I think one of the things they're trying to do too is to warn people that some of the things they're going to be finding out about are just a little bit too hard to handle, a little bit too hard to bear. So the United States Secret Service is on high alert. That was the last post of last night. And I don't believe that there are any more since that time. That was the last one, but that was a pretty amazing one, that the Secret Service is on high alert and that there's panic in D.C. So as you can see, the stakes are high. The military is involved because the military wants to take back these horrid people. I mean, I don't even know how to describe them. They're not actually human in a lot of ways. And so I want people to really understand. If you're at home watching the game, this is what they want us to do. They want us to be distracted. They want us to be watching mainstream media. They want us to be just not believing that it's possible, because most of us just can't wrap our minds around these ideas. And of course, that's a good thing, because there are people that commit murder all the time, whether they mean to or not. But we don't always understand the mind of the killer, and we don't have a lot of empathy, and that's a good thing. That separates us from the bad guys. It's the people that can really understand that this is happening, that this kind of stuff is going on in the world, that are they're looking at it in the face, and I think they're the brave ones. I believe that you as an audience, and the people, as I say on the radio show, that are listening now, everyone who's listening, everyone who's gotten involved, everyone who will become involved, is a patriot and is a person who will be able to look back and tell their children and grandchildren that they participated in saving the country in a way that's equal or greater to any of the world wars that have been fought. And this is not overstating it, folks. This is not overstating it. As you can see, USS is on high alert. Okay? And that's what's happening in the background. Just again, I keep reiterating this, but it's important to understand that these things are happening. It's not a figment of one's imagination. And again, what you'll find is often there'll be these posts by Q, and then you'll hear a tweet, or you'll see a tweet, or you'll hear some story in the news about how Donald Trump's done something wacky again, or he's saying something that's really difficult to understand from the point of view of all of us who are just kind of minding our own business and going about our lives, and then we see this tweet that seems to come out of nowhere. Some of them have capitalizations on some of the words, and the words actually are coded. For those that are not familiar with Q, this is Q101. It's just a way of getting introduced to the concept and what's been happening. So this is one that was posted. February 7th was particularly active, and I'm not going through these in any particular order, but the Rothschilds had an estate, and it was as big as Manhattan, and it was near the Black Forest, as I understand it. And there was some talk about the Black Forest. It was really interesting. There were just all of these little messages, breadcrumbs dropped about the Black Forest, and then we find that they this piece of land that was in the family for generations has just been sold, because what's happening is under the executive order that was signed on December 21st of 2017 by Donald Trump, the property of any of these perpetrators can be seized, and is being seized. And it started with the Saudi trip. And so you can see that this is a long time unraveling. The Saudi trip was the beginning of basically saying, we're not playing with you anymore, and we have ways, we're not buying from you, we're not selling to you, we've drawn the line, we've created the wall. And so this happened, of course, it is happening with the Rothschilds. As I said, there was an arrest in China that is tied very much to the Rothschilds, who are kingpins in the drug industry there. If you're mad about what's happening with the fentanyl situation, with people overdosing and dying, be aware of who's behind it, and be aware that this is part of what's being dealt with through this process. That's one of the, I guess, although it's not small, it is one of the smallest parts of the story, because there are people that are dying from child trafficking and that sort of, level of heinousness. Hollywood, Adam Schiff is going to be outed for the troll that he is. He lives in Burbank, California, which is coincidentally exactly where Hollywood is, and he has a stake in the Standard Hotel. Standard Hotel, if you look it up, is just a den of iniquity. It's just a horrible place, and in fact, it's really just a front for child trafficking. There was a helicopter crash on the weekend, and it killed. I believe it was the weekend before this. I think it was the 29th or so of January, but I will leave you to look at it. It's easy to find because 3 of the major players that are associated with the Standard Hotel and child trafficking were killed in that helicopter crash. The Amtrak train that that hit the garbage truck. There were GOP members in there that was the Wednesday, I believe that's the 31st of January, and the members of the GOP party were actually going to a bunker because this whole operation was beginning, and you'll notice that all of the GOP members were having a meeting the next day, and they were together at a military installation. But not only was a drone tracking the train and keeping in touch with the military, all of the side roads had been shut down to avoid just such an event. And unfortunately, it still took place, but they made it very difficult for them. So in a way, the hunters become the hunted is a very important thing to understand, because that's exactly what's happening. Whether it's the Rothschilds, this property that they sold out of the blue, it's rumored that Hunger Games was really going on there, where they were having there are stories coming out of that area where women in particular were hunted and sent off naked to run through the woods while it's so sick I can't even talk about it, but it's apparently the piece of property that was sold is the very place that this horrific stuff was going on. So it's hard to talk about, and it's hard to believe, but also the Uranium One situation has so many ties. Do you see how many tentacles there are here? I know why people get boggled, because there's so many different things going on. But wherever you see Hillary Clinton saying, giving a narrative, in particular in this case, if she's projecting something out to other people that they're doing this, that, and the other thing, she's doing it herself. She's not subtle, and she's not she's not particularly smart about how she just believes that she's invincible, and until now, and so therefore she has been willing to be very outspoken about her accusations of other people, but you will notice that they generally tie right back to the accusations that people should be making of her. And the the Christopher Steele so-called dossier, it appears that that's going back to Sid Blumenthal, who has been her henchman for these many years. Many people call him Sid Vicious, because he will go at people tooth and nail. And he is. They're finding now that the Nunes memo is relating to this player that was this go-between. And so Christopher Steele himself was owned by the Clintons. He was paid by the foundation and the DNC party, but basically by the Clinton Foundation through Perkins Coie, which was the law firm that they were using, which also coincidentally has been used by Bill when he was up on charges. And I believe Huma Abedin has used their services. I believe that actually her wonderful husband used the services of Perkins Coie. So her handprints are all over everything, and it turns out in the last couple of days they've been able to draw the line and draw the diagram back to Sidney Blumenthal, who probably actually wrote the dossier with Hillary Clinton. And whoever did it, were they drinking? What were they doing? Who comes up with this kind of stuff? Things that Comey calls salacious and unverified. So in the summer, he's telling he's telling people that the dossier is salacious and unverified. And then he goes, and yet he signs the FISA warrant, and based on the dossier, which is salacious and unverified. So you can see where these guys are getting, all of these people, the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, they're all complicit. And who knows what judge is signing this warrant that is based on false information. All of these things are coming to light. And these guys are freaking out, I'll tell you. And so let me see. Some of these things you're going to have to actually look into a little bit more, because they're very much coded. But what it's doing is it's uniting people behind the scenes and getting them involved in looking at these things. So here's the picture from the hotel in China. You can see that the windows open there. And this was in real time as they were actually doing the takedown. I'm going backward here, but what they're saying is that we see you, we understand what you're doing, and they're showing us, but they're also showing the bad guys that they see exactly what they're doing. They know what's going on. And so he's got pictures here, he, her, whatever, whoever's doing the surveillance. This is in Shanghai. And they're showing that this is their surveillance that they're doing on the building itself. And so sorry, need to go back down there. As you can see, it goes on and on and on and on and on. And of course, I'm not going to, you'll be glad to know that I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'm just showing you that all of these things come into it. Uranium One has ties to Canada, to Russia, to Britain. The Queen comes into this. I mean, there's no one that's left unscathed. A lot of us have had suspicions about the Queen. In fact, those who live in Canada know that there's been a suspicion that she actually did a kidnapping in the 1960s, and there's a warrant out on that. I mean, you can't, as Sean Hannity would say, you can't make this stuff up. Now, of course, I have to say I'm not a follower of any particular news person. I just think that there's some people that have put themselves out there to talk about these things when it was very dangerous to do so. And now that it's becoming a little bit more understood, as people are beginning to understand that this is what's happening, it's making it safer. If you can understand that, as the more people that know about this and understand what's happening and see this is the first time, as Dr. Jerome Corsi has said, that the military has disclosed their methods and has gotten the citizenry involved in this process. The point being is that that's what democracy is. It's not about government. It's about we the people. It's about the everyday person who's getting involved and becoming revitalized and seeing themselves as being part of the process. And that's what the Q drops are all about. And there are certain people that are just going to continue. It only took a few people, Thomas Paine and his gang, that were able to begin the overthrow of the British, or that there's always just a very few people that start understanding what's going on and acting on it, not hiding their head in the sand. And that it's very, very hard, because people don't want to believe this. They'd rather watch their football games. They'd rather be entertained. They'd rather sit back and let people do this for them. But I am encouraging you with everything I can to please let people know that this is what's happening, to get yourself aware of what's happening, and then to join together. This is a time for joining together, not for dividing, not for trolling, not for any of that stuff that's been going on, but to really begin to see that we're dealing with an evil force here, real evil. And I don't care what your religious beliefs are or how you feel about evil, but and I know that there is stuff going on in the world that ain't pretty. And these people are at the heart of it, at the soul of it. And he often says future proves past. And so that's another one. You have so much more than you know. So much! ! Can you know that? He's basically saying, I keep saying he, but there's no question about there's no answer about whether it's a he or she. A lot of people have assumed that it's a he. There's been all sorts of different pictures that have been taken, whether on Air Force One or when Trump was in Saudi Arabia, when he was in Davos, various places. There'll be a picture taken of his desk or of something that tells you that Q is there. Q has Q clearance, which means that they have the clearance to be working alongside the president. So a lot of people obviously feel that this is a military operative because of the language being used, and the people who are in the military completely understand this. And if you know anybody who is in the military, you will begin to understand the kind of code that's being used here. But again, the great thing is that it's being shared with the average person, so that we can all be Thomas Paines. We can all be the average person getting involved with this nefarious gang of people, and to just wake up our neighbors, wake up our friends, and be aware that this, otherwise it will turn into bloodshed. If it's not dealt with in this way, where people just rise up and make people aware of what's happening, and if people are still watching the media as they are going down, they're going to go down with the ship with them, then there's not much hope for those folks. But, I guess we deserve what we get. But you'll notice that sometimes he will actually post one of Trump's actual tweets, so that you can get the sense of how those link in. This one is the time marker is 23 minutes, and so there's a 23-minute gap between when it was posted by Q and when Donald Trump did the tweet. Sometimes it's a minute, sometimes it can be within a minute, and it'll be along exactly the same lines, or there'll be things that are said that are precisely what Q has just posted. So again, we can continue to go down. These posts continue. This is still February 7th, and we're February 8th. So you can see that there was a huge amount of information that was contributed yesterday. This is sometimes he actually will respond to some of the Anons, the people that are on the board and the Anon board, and will respond to them so that he can let people know if they're on the right track or not. So another person that comes up in the discussion is Snowden, and clearly Snowden is in Russia, and there are plans to get him out. There's also John Perry Barlow, who passed away unexpectedly. I believe, was it yesterday? I think it was. It was on the 7th that he died. Now, he was the one that wanted to keep the internet free, and he was considered to be quite a patriot. So this is Q's post here about the obituary. He was held up as a straw man for a kind of naive techno-utopianism that believed that the internet could solve all of humanity's problems without causing any more. Anyway, that's very, very long, and I'm not going to read it. But then, of course, it goes back. So this is really, really important, because you'll see that in the news, hopefully, if you've been watching anything but CNN, or if you've been looking on the internet at all, you'll notice that there's a story now about Lynch offering the Supreme Court position to Hillary. Well, this is really, really important, because a little bit earlier, let's see, there's a whole list of things. There's the Awan brothers, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Pakistani intel. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of tips here so that you can understand what's going on. But this one is of particular interest, because a lot of people wonder what happened on the tarmac when Bill Clinton went out to meet up with Loretta Lynch. What they found, and what will come across in the upcoming Inspector General's report, is the fact that Lynch actually was coordinating. They coordinated planes so that they'd meet up in Arizona, and that they would have a conversation there. And so it was at that time that Lynch was offered a Supreme Court position. But the most important part about that is that I believe Scalia, Anthony, I think his name's Anthony. Anyway, Judge Scalia, who was on the Supreme Court, the conservative judge, was found dead in, I believe it was February of last year, of 2017, about this time last year, at a ranch. He'd been invited to a ranch. It was an Illuminati ranch. It was run by people who were involved in the Illuminati by their own admission. But a lot of the judges are involved in that. Apparently he wasn't, but he was invited to the ranch. And just before that, John Podesta had been talking in the Hillary Clinton emails. You'll notice that Podesta talks about doing wetworks. I'm sorry. We are considered wetware, but they were going to do wet works. And then there was this confluence of events where Scalia went out to the ranch. He was found with a pillow over his head, mysteriously, and they couldn't find anyone to do the autopsy, strangely enough. And then they just cremated him. So there was never a proper investigation done about that. But coincidentally, it opened up a Supreme Court position, so that because that was one of the things that they were also trying to do, and during Obama's time, they were trying to fill those positions with folks that were plants. And Scalia was in the way, because he was actually an honest person, and he was not part of the cabal. So they were planning to get rid of him, and did so. And you can see that on the very day that he died, the 13th of February, I'm going to say, could be wrong on my dates, don't hold me to the dates, but Podesta writes to Clinton and says that that they're gonna puts forward some ideas about the Supreme Court judge, then how they're going to replace this person. And anyway, there's a whole group of coincidental things that happen on the very same day that he dies. How does he even know at that point? I mean, there's some question as to how Podesta even knew at that point that Scalia had died. But then they waste no time in coming up with other alternatives. And then by the time that Bill is meeting meeting Loretta Lynch on the tarmac, I believe that was in the summer, there was a new plan that they were going to have her serve on the Supreme Court. And if she was willing to change the Hillary investigation and make it a matter and put in a good word for Hillary and talk to James Comey about that, you can see how all of this comes together, because then Comey comes out with his report, which he'd already written, that exonerated Hillary Clinton, because everybody knew that, quote unquote, that Hillary was going to be the next president. There was no question. She, if you look at the cockiness of the people, there's no way that Donald Trump will never be president. Da, 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 da. Well, that's because they had the whole thing rigged. This is how badly she lost. She had the whole thing completely and utterly rigged, and yet she still lost. I mean, it would be funny if it weren't so horrible and sad. But there's so many people that had her back and were working on her behalf, totally skewing everything, totally setting it up. Debbie Wasserman Schultz with the DNC. Bernie was totally ripped off. There's a whole other story there, as you probably know. Seth Rich was involved in disclosing what was happening there with the Bernie campaign. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on in all these different directions. But it's so clear that Clinton is in behind every single thing, but she can't do anything on her own without offing people or intimidating people or rigging things. I mean, there were people being bussed around from one state to the other. Whether it was for the Bernie campaign or for the primaries or whether it was for the actual election, it was well known. And Soros owns most of the voting machines anyway. So, I mean, how much more could you rig the thing? And yet she still lost. So she talks about a margin. Well, no, there's if you take away all of the votes that didn't belong to her and all of the rigging that went on and all the jerry rigging and the fact that she was let off of these criminal charges by bribing Loretta Lynch after killing Scalia. You see the tie-in here, and it's frightening, again, to see that as you begin to put the pieces together, that this is Hillary behind all of this. Why? To get this position, I think partly it was, that she felt owed, but the other part was they had a 16-year plan. Started with Obama, and it was going to go through with Clinton. And there was no way that she was going to lose. So that's why they have to continue on getting him out of there at all costs, get him out of that position, get Trump out at all costs. And they've up until Friday and before Nunes's memo was released, they were full tilt boogie on that agenda of getting him out of office by impeaching him. And yet the whole thing has turned. Now, as I started with the story of Esther, many will know that the story of Esther ends with Haman and his sons being hanged in the gallows that he created for the Jews and for those that he was trying to kill. And I think that this is just another example of that, because what they're saying is that this is going to have to be a military tribunal. It's going to have to be a court-martial. Anyway, that's why they're getting Gitmo ready to have all of these trials, and it's going to make the Nuremberg trials look like child's play, I think, because there's so many people that are involved in this incredible coup and this incredible move that was to get rid of us useless eaters and to get the world population down. That's one of Hillary's plans, was that she wanted to have the Third World War to get to lower, not because we need population control, but because they need less people, because they're easier to control that way. And this is not conspiracy theory, folks. This is actual stuff that is coming out as being true, which a year ago people would have said, come on, even during the past year, it's been really, really difficult for those of us that have seen what's going on and have been trying to explain to people and they say, oh yeah, sure, Mueller's dirty and Comey's dirty and this person's dirty. You're just trying to cover up for Trump. No, I really am not. I'm not a partisan. I see the truth. And if you've tuned in on a Saturday to Dr. Judy Wood, you'll understand that whether it's 9/11, which of course these people were involved with too. If you take a look at Mueller's past, Comey's past, you take a look at Andrew McCabe, take a look at any of these people, and you'll notice you can track them right back. They were all involved at that time as well. Mueller came on the case just after 9/11, and he was all part of the cover-up. So, okay, I'm not going to speculate, as Dr. Judy says. Know what it is that you know, and I'm not going to speculate on that, but I think it's pretty clear from all accounts and whatever's coming out now that it all goes back. These are the same players. They're the same folks, and it's going to come out. It's going to come out. I'm excited about that because I think Dr. Judy's going to be vindicated as well, and anybody who has been trying to get this across that. And it's not just for the oil in Iran, and it's not just for Iraq. It's not just for, the poppies in Afghanistan. We're talking about world domination. It was a demonstration of what can be done. And these people still own the technology. Keep that in mind. This is why they're being very careful about how this gets done, because think about this. Same person, the same group that had the ability to destroy that building and all the people in it have the button and the goal, and I'm sure that that's the thing that they've had at their disposal and behind the scenes to be able to intimidate people in the past. And so this whole thing has been a clandestine operation that has made it very difficult for people who are in the know, that understand a little bit of what's happening, to be able to get across to their friends and family that things ain't what they seem. They ain't what they seem. And so that's also why it's difficult to get across this information about Q. Because, by the way, sorry, I just stopped at this part on the screen. It says Trump should be shot. I just want to explain that because I don't want to just pass by that and freak everybody out. But apparently at the State of the Union address, there was a person that was photographed from behind, and Q is saying that on the screen it actually said Trump should be shot. There's an insinuation anyway, and that's considered to be treason, sedition, and so there is a move afoot, and I call on all of you guys too to get involved in this, because there are tasks to be done, and one of them is to save the raw footage offline and to see if anybody has the technical skills to be able to figure out what was going on in this picture. This is about a week ago, so what has been figured out, somebody is playing Candy Crush there. The person in the center, I think they do know who this is, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the information into our hands and into the hands of anybody that will watch or that will listen, so that there won't be a sense that this is a conspiracy theory or that there's targeting going on, but that we will all be on side and we will go, oh, I see, yes, this is treason, this is sedition, this is something that warrants the trials that will come up over this kind of stuff. So you can see in this picture, if you look very closely, you can see at the top, oops, I got it. Let's see. How do I get back? I want to cancel that. Okay, so sorry, I'm just working on a very small screen here. But let me just I think that's as big as she wants to go. But if you look at the picture in the middle and you look up at the top left corner, you can really see where it's not really calibrated properly, where it appears that there's an image that's been overlaid onto the phone in the post production period. I'm not sure whether this was done by a still camera or whether it was part of the video that was done. It's very high definition, whatever it is. But clearly it's not that difficult to figure out who this person is. Got very distinctive nail polish and that sort of thing. I'm not saying that I know who it is, but there have been some ideas put forward. The point is that this is about evidence collection, which is why I think it's so amazing, because it's exactly what we all should be doing instead of conjecture. It's great to have these ideas, and it's great to have some suggestion of what's going on, but to be able to be involved in data collection is amazing, and that's really what Q's trying to do here. And of course, Q just speaks for the military, and what they are trying to do is to get people involved so that there won't be military actions. Although I do believe that the military is very, very much involved, they're trying to keep this from being a matter of bloodshed. And if you've seen what's happened in the past year with Soros and his gang trying to conjure up as much dissension as possible, that's all part of it. They're trying to create a civil war. And the only way that we can fight that, if you want to use that as a term, is to join together in the task at hand, which is to help to show other people, again, red pill people, so that they can understand that these things are happening. Whether they believe them or not is up to them, but there's clear evidence of what is happening, and they're being posted here. So if anybody has the technical skills, there's a whole move afoot with the QAnon community, which is very, very large and growing, which is why I've, again, chosen to dedicate some time to this myself, on my radio show, on YouTube. As I say, I'm simulcasting this. I'm going to be simulcasting a 24/7 update on Q, which I'm not doing. I'm just doing a feed so that you can hear it on the radio show that you can hear on characterdriven.com. You'll notice that it says air streaming on the top of the page. At the left-hand side, there's a little player, and you can just click that on anytime, and you can hear that updated after the show. So I'm going to finish up very soon. I just wanted to let people know that they can get their information at the link below on the description, qcodefag.github.io, and you can go there and find all of this yourself. So I just want to say this is what the call to action is regarding that photograph. Find the roll, one of 4. Find the 4th. Find the film, not the capture. Enhance. Spread. Will go viral. Source. Archive. Offline. Raw only. Okay, now I'm not figuring this out on my own. When you first read some of this stuff, you just go, what the heck? And so after a while, it becomes very clear, not obvious by any stretch of the imagination, but it becomes clear that this is a way of engaging people and getting them to think critically, and to understand, to get together and to talk to one another, and to use each other's skills. It's brilliant. It's so brilliant. And that's why I'm getting behind this. I'm getting behind it anyway, because there's no other choice. Otherwise, we're doomed. But the way that it's being done is so brilliant that you have to, anybody with any creativity, imagination, skills, talents, has to get excited about the idea that they can become involved with this process. It's not just a group of geeks over there on some on 4chan or 8chan. They've actually made this available. They're kind to one another. They're polite to one another. They're trying to create a community of people that is completely intact and is on the same page, so that we can actually approach this as a group, as with solidarity. And so most people have figured out that it is the it's on that particular page. and that there's it could be one of four in terms of the number of times that they are on camera. And anyway, find the fourth. That's the one that's how I interpret it. But again, this is all up to interpretation. Find the fourth time that they pan over and have that person on film, because that's when you'll notice that it says that he should be shot and that there's a message going out. The other thing that's really interesting is that there was a conversation that Adam Schiff had. Apparently it was 42 minutes. I'm not sure if I can find it here. I'm skipping over. So that's the picture again. That's the one that you're looking for. They think that it's the fourth time that it was shown on I believe it was not C-SPAN, because Obama actually wouldn't let C-SPAN go in. He had a private contractor that came in to do the work. But there's one down here a little bit farther, and I can't remember which day it is, and I'm not going to really worry about finding it for you. But it is a warning. A lot of these are warnings to the people who, obviously, that are looking at the Chans, who are the black hat guys that are watching to see how much we are all finding out. And I think that's all part of it too, is to freak these guys out as much as possible. The hunters become the hunted, as they say. But anyway, down here, much farther, I lost my place. But if you go onto the page, you'll notice that there's AS. One of them is Antonin Scalia, which is the judge. But another one in the context that it's written, AS, is Adam Schiff. And he is speaking to Valerie. I should have all the names in front of me. I've done fairly well, but Valerie. Anyway, he basically says, Q says that he knows that it was a 42-minute conversation and that there were two people listening in on that conversation, which means that whatever was said was seditious, and it only needs to have two witnesses to be able to testify as to what was being said. So another one of those really clear messages to the bad guys to say, look, we know what you're doing. We see, we hear all, we see all. He says that quite a bit. And, oh yes, this is about Chuck Schumer. Thank you for visiting the White House. He says, and apparently when he came out, he was absolutely white, like a ghost. And all of a sudden, he was very willing to cooperate with things. And Nancy Pelosi has gotten very upset about his willingness to comply and to go along with things now. So anyway, I'm going to go back to this original post. I'm going to take a look and see if Q is reposting. But there is a high alert going on right now in the United States, whether you know it or not. There are a lot of things going on in the background, and it's not a hypothetical. It's real. It's going on right now, and the important thing is that people become aware and that people become involved at whatever level you want. So you can tune in on characterdriven.com. I also encourage you to go and to become part of that community. It's very easy. You can sign in with your Facebook ID, or just all I need is a email address and a password. Easy stuff to figure out. And so it doesn't ask for anything else. And the only reason for that is to have a private community where it's somewhat protected. There's no advertising, except for the T-shirts that we have for Dr. Judy and the mugs. And that all goes to her support. As people know, she doesn't have a job. She wouldn't want me mentioning this, but I try to support her in any way that I can. And on the website, you can actually purchase a mug or a T-shirt, which I think is a really good way to get the conversation going, because it's no what it is that you know, and it says Dr. Judy Wood right there on the T-shirt. So it really is a conversation starter, and I think that's the best thing. And I'm going to be creating some more memes. There's memes there if you wanted to be able to share them. That's one of the ways that Q is asking us to, Red Pill people, is to go onto social media and share memes so that we are waking up our family and friends to what is happening, because the more people that know, the easier it will be to do this in a kind, gentle way. Instead, that's not even possible, in a way that keeps us from having bloodshed. And that's hopefully going to happen because these guys are smart and they're putting themselves at risk. And Trump, most of all, as he says, he doesn't have to be doing this, but he has offered himself up as the one. He's about the only one that could do this, who has the moxie, who has the skills. He's been playing a game of chess, and that's one of the things that Q's been talking about. He has posted a chess game and shown these impossible moves from a chess game that was done at the turn of the century by some geniuses. And basically he's saying that this is exactly the kind of strategy that they're using behind the scenes. So that's enough blah, blah, blah from me. And I am very thankful for the people that have chosen to join us both here and on the radio. And I will be back with more information as it becomes available. And let's see. Oh, do we have questions? Speak truth. Really just 2 people. No, actually, I see that there's 14 people that are here. And keep it in mind that I also am using the radio opportunity that I have to be able to do this, and I will be live streaming. But it takes a while for things to catch on, and all I'm doing is my little part in a very, very big initiative. And whether we have 2 people or 10 people, I don't mind, and I'm willing to keep coming back for whoever wants to find out what's going on. And I'm also really hoping to have your help and your interaction. So please do come back and join in. Please do go and find out more that you can bring back to this community as well. We're all one big community, and I'm just helping to get folks involved. And I thank you to the 14 people, the 20 people, who knows, there could be 100 people. And I don't have a way of finding out who else is listening. But again, if you go over to characterdriven.com and you click on the little button on the player, it says air streaming, and that is our radio station. And we do other programming as well. Usually we have music playing, but right now I'm dedicating the airtime just to Q updates for the time being so that people can get the information that they need. And please do go onto the website and join the community so that you can ask questions there, that you can become involved. I will put up a Q discussion board on the forum as well. We have one for Dr. Judy Wood as well. So you can go over there and see what is available. You can also friend people and that sort of thing. And I know that we do have Facebook and all these other things, but this is definitely a community of non-conventional creative thinkers who wants to have the privacy and wants to have real discussions instead of just posting garbage, or spending their time playing Candy Crush like they do when at the president's speeches. Apparently that's what they like to do over in the corner there, rather than standing up or giving their full attention to what's going on. They play Candy Crush. And that tells you a little bit about how our world is divided between those that are actually interested in making a difference and leaving a legacy, a positive legacy, and those that are playing Candy Crush. And nothing against the Candy Crush players. I have my own little games that I play every once in a while. But if you really want to play a great game, go on over to the GitHub site and get involved with answering some of these riddles, because some of them are incredible riddles. Dr. Jerome Corsi has been involved, as I mentioned earlier. He's been trying to unravel some of this and to get people aware of how to decipher the codes and how to get involved. But again, I think it's brilliant. What a wonderful way to bring people together and to show that we're all on the same page, rather than dividing and conquering, which is what the bad guys want to do. It's what they've been wanting to do. 9/11 was all about that. If you don't like this story, go to this story, go to this story. Stay distracted. Stay involved with fighting with one another, rather than actually finding out what's happening and what is how you can fit in with a solution. So I thank you to everybody in this amazing community, and small or large doesn't matter to me. I think it's amazing to have people who are willing to sit through me blathering on and are willing to look into these issues. And if this is the first time that you have heard about Q, or if you've been skeptical about Q, then this is an opportunity for you to find out a little bit more, put your toe in the water and find out if this is something that you can see yourself becoming part of. And because one of these days we're going to be looking back and going, there were some patriots who were willing to get very much involved and to put themselves on the line to make a difference. And the whole point of this is that, as Thomas Paine was one person and many of the revolutionaries were one person, that's what Q's trying to say, is that we're all able to be involved. I'm going to be talking about Carter Page the next time, so if anybody has any questions about Carter Page, I will put that in the title. It'll be Q posts as well, but it's also going to be a discussion on Carter Page, and you're going to be hearing about this guy. You're going to be hearing a lot of disinfo. So I'm going to try and dedicate each of the shows, each of the live streams, which I'm hoping to do each day, to a different part of the story so that we can try and weave it together and answer questions. I'll also be playing some audio, at least, hopefully some video as well. I'm just being very careful because I do get dinged from YouTube when I play any of the video clips. So audio seems to be okay with some of the video bits and pieces, but I did have the video that I did with Dr. Judy Wood last week, where we were even talking about Jordan Peterson and Kathy Newman, was banned worldwide, and they'll do anything that they can to shut down Dr. Judy Wood. So I think I'm actually being shadow banned, the whole channel. So the only way that this gets out to people is by sharing it and letting people know that we're here. You'll notice that when Dr. Judy Wood is on, that there's only, I think we've had 20 people in the audience, and that isn't how it should be, and that's not how it is on the radio. So I know that YouTube is shadow banning us, and they're getting us out of the search. And so the only way that we can do this is to share the link, tweet it, share it on social media, or email it to people. You'll notice that on Character Driven, well, the other thing to do is to get people onto the Character Driven site, and you'll notice that there's a place where you can actually email people and invite them to join the site, because there's so much information there that you won't necessarily have to be the one that's telling people about that. That's the whole point of the site, is that there's other people that can help you if you're trying to let people in your family or your friendship circle or your Facebook friends or whoever know more about what's going on. There are other people that can help you. You don't have to go it alone. You're part of a group of people that are more than happy to help you to understand some of the issues. And so this is just one way that we're doing it. And if you have any questions, particularly about Q or Carter Page, or Carter Page, or any of the other people who are in this story, there's about a bazillion of them. And not only will I try to answer the questions, I will also try to get the answer for you. The other thing you can do on the website is you can actually get in touch with me or with Dr. Wood or with Radiate or various other people who are able to answer specific questions that you might have. So this is a place, it's just a safe place for you to be on the internet. And I've got lots of blockers, and so we keep spam to a minimum, and it's a full-time job, I tell you, and we're all volunteers here, so it's not like we're doing it out of love, and we're doing it out of care for our fellow human beings. Meanwhile, notice that the Secret Service is on high alert. There is panic in DC. It's not anything to be worried about because it's panic amongst the bad guys that are being outed like rats leaving a ship. And as you see the resignations, be aware that those are the people that are being outed. Those are the people that are saying, I don't really want to play this game anymore. I want to get out unscathed because they know what the consequences are going to be otherwise. Meanwhile, they're getting Gitmo ready. So I'm going to finish off the same way that I started with my little compilation here. And I'm going to say goodbye to you and see you next time. Please subscribe and make sure that you click that little bell so that you're given updates and notifications when we go live. Okay, see you soon.